still a little bit earlier, but I think even if there will be still some participants joining, we start this afternoon session. In the name of the India-EU Water Partnership and GIZ, I would like to welcome you to our knowledge exchange session under the India-EU Water Partnership, the IEWP, which is dedicated to business and frameworks regarding treated wastewater reuse in India. This is one of a row of knowledge exchange sessions, and I will provide an overview what is going to take place during 2020 regarding our business component. I myself, I'm Birgit Vogel. I'm the project manager of the India-EU Water Partnership, and I'm really pleased to see you all here and welcome you. As you can see in the program in front of you, we have a lot of, I think, interesting agenda points today, and I will actually I already did my welcome remark, but my opening remarks will actually focus on introducing you to the India-EU Water Partnership and what we are doing. I know that some of you in this room already know about the IEWP, but I can also see some new faces, and I think you are aware that we are also doing a webcast today. And in that sense, I would also like to welcome everybody who has logged in and who is attending via the webcast. So, as said before, my other colleagues will go more into details with the business component itself and also with cases for business involvement in India. I'm going to introduce the IEWP to you a little bit. The overall objective of the India-EU Water Partnership is to strengthen technological, scientific and management capabilities of India and the EU in the field of water management. In order to do that, we set up over the last few years a lot of cooperation activities with Indian partners, the Ministry of Jal Shakti, and a lot of aligned authorities like the Central Water Commission, the National Mission for Clean Ganga, the Central Groundwater Board, and others to jointly achieve the objective that we set together. So the IEWP more or less directly contributes to improve water resources and in particular river basin management in India, but of course as well to policy and decision making. There are two implementation components. The component number one is a very proactive and very applied component. It is following a flexible action plan of the IEWP, and that holds 9 priority areas that are implemented through us together with EU support, EU member states and the Indian partners. I will introduce these 9 priority areas to you. And the focus is really on supporting river basin management and water resources management in India with the aim that the water policy dialogue between India and EU improves over the implementation phase. The component number 2 is the business component. So this is the frame we are meeting up today. And this business component is all about facilitating the involvement of EU businesses and companies into the Indian market, into the Indian water sector, which is not always so easy. Another focus is on research and innovation, also linked to businesses, to actually bring innovative EU technology to India and implement it in specific cases. The timeline, and I will not go in too much detail with that, the IEWP is a rather young partnership. The Memorandum of Understanding between the EU and India was signed in 2016. And then we were really busy in setting up an implementation structure and mechanism in order to work with our Indian partners and to boost the implementation activities. So we are in the middle of this now, and actually this implementation phase will end September 2020 with an India-EU Water Forum, but we are already planning the next phase. It would not be good if the partnership ends all of a sudden. So the activities regarding the component 1 and also the component 2 will continue after 2020, and the next phase will last until end of September 2023. I mentioned cooperation beforehand. So the IEWP is actually a very good basis for cooperation. And who is cooperating? Of course, the Indian authorities that I mentioned. Then we are the EU, so the EU member states, of course, play a key role. The technical knowledge, the technologies are aimed to be introduced and implemented in India. Then, of course, cooperation with research institutions and NGOs and the civil society. But, of course, the businesses are very important. It's all about cooperation, it's about facilitation, it's about research and education and training, actually building up capacities in India, and of course the implementation. So if we speak about the business component, there are certain focuses, and one focus is to actually identify business opportunities. So what is needed in India, and how can EU companies be facilitated to enter the water sector based on one hand on existing activities within the partnership, but also within bilateral implementation activities, and by creating new opportunities that are more demand-driven, and I will come to that in the moment to outline that. So it's also, of course, about informing and creating strategic entry points for EU companies, and to actually make innovative technical know-how available so that water resources and river basin management becomes actually more efficient and, of course, also more sustainable in India. So it's about pilot projects, bringing in know-how, technologies, suitable sites for testing, and of course the partners. And all of this goes hand in hand, and it's about cooperation. So it's project-based collaboration by leveraging access to the IEWP, by exchanging information, and of course also know-how. The priority areas, I mentioned them in the beginning, and they don't only play a role when it comes to improved river basin management and water resources management in India. It's of course also relevant for the business component. So you can see the 9 priorities here, spanning from sustainable river basin management, environmental flow, Ganga rejuvenation, groundwater use, water use in irrigation, solar pumping in relation to river basin management planning, capacity building, treated wastewater reuse, that's also the topic today, research, innovation and technology. And these priority areas actually establish a basis and a knowledge to drive demand-driven business involvement. And of course, besides it, there's also research and innovation and the technologies. In order to make this a little bit easier to understand, I would like to give some examples what this means if a business is interested to get involved and actually seeks for opportunities. The priority area 1, we are developing a river basin management plan in the Tapi River Basin by blending Indian approaches with EU approaches. And we are also including a program of measures into this plan. And of course, this provides a very good overview on needs. So what kind of businesses, what kind of technologies might be or are needed at certain sites to actually improve water resources management? And of course, this program of measures will be available to the EU member states, available to businesses, and also for investors. Ganga rejuvenation. In the next phase, we are actually planning to upscale the findings and the river basin management approach of the Tapi Basin to a sub-basin of the Ganga, and this will also create new business opportunities. Irrigation, canal automation as a business opportunity, and also to introduce innovative technologies in India. Then treated wastewater reuse, and we will discuss about that a lot today. The IEWP currently supports the Ministry of Jal Shakti and the National Mission for Clean Ganga to develop a national policy on the reuse of treated wastewater. So we have a complex, hopefully working mechanism for a consultation process in place. And this is also the basis for creation of business opportunities, but also in relation to our water resources implementation activities in the 9 priority areas, for example, in the Ganga River Basin and in the Tapi River Basin. Regarding research, innovation and technology, you know about the EU-India Horizon 2020 water projects. Also, as part of the consortia, there are businesses involved, and it's also about innovative technologies. So I also want to mention here that the business component is being implemented by the IEWP, but in very close cooperation with EPTC. And I would also like to thank EPTC for organizing this meeting today and inviting the participants. I'm coming close to the end of this presentation. We, of course, have a website, IEWP.eu. That's also a source of information, not only for the business component, but it is definitely an entry point to business cooperation between EU and India. What you can do if you go to the business cooperation tab of our website, you can register via e-tech, and thereby you really get information on projects and business involvement in India. So if you click on this registration button, you will see the EU-India business collaboration through the European Technology and Engagement cell. You can type in your name, your organization, and you automatically will get more information, and you will have a better basis to keep up to date and to get involved into business collaboration. And this is now really my last slide. You can see a list of events. We launched the e-tech link for registration in September 2019, and we had a session actually on the reuse of treated wastewater as part of the India Water Week, involving a lot of Indian and EU businesses, but also the government side, EU member states and financial institutions, and also the banks like the European Investment Bank. And today we are here for this half-day session discussing and providing an overview on the reuse of treated wastewater. And we also have the EU member states here, then bilateral chambers, forums, alliances, and similar bodies of EU water businesses in India. We'll have a further event in March on innovative procurement models and PPP structures. This will take in UP. In April, there will be a session on financing models. How does this work in India? In the beginning of May, we will be at the IFAD in Munich, cooperating with the Clean Ganga initiative and having a session for EU businesses to get more information information about India and involvement. And then there will be also another session on transfer of technology and how we could or you could make use of pilot projects. So I hope I was able to provide you an overview what the IEWP is about, in particular establishing a basis for the business component. And my colleague, Judith Weinberger-Singh, she will provide more insight and more detail in the EU-India business collaboration. And therefore, I hand over the floor to Judith. Thank you for your attention.
Hello, good afternoon. Welcome, everyone. We're very pleased to have you here this afternoon with us in Delhi, and also a very warm welcome to everyone joining from abroad via webcast. We hope to really share some relevant information with you and also shed some light on the business component of the India-EU water partnership that is carried out here in India. My name, I was already introduced, is Judith Weinberger-Singh. I'm head projects of the European Business and Technology Center, and short EBTC. So our role in this partnership is really to, in this context of the IEWP ecosystem, to foster the business engagement, look at that particular part of the ecosystem, which is a very crucial one, to really implement the solutions, to react upon the challenges, transfer them into opportunities that can be implemented in cooperation with all the other parties of the ecosystem, and assure that there is more involvement from across the European member states. So thank you very much for showing your interest in this session today. And I'll just start with a brief introduction to what has been done so far under our engagement as a cooperation partner. To begin with, the big question was there, of course, what's the current state of play? What are the kind of businesses already active here in India? What do they do exactly? Birgit has shown us just now that the partnership comprises of different kinds of priority areas, which eventually translate into different segments or markets, into different target groups or partners here in India. So that was the first step that we took to see what is already happening here on the ground, and at the same time also interact with the representatives of businesses here in India, with the member states, to understand the long-term perspective, the kind of support ecosystem which is already there, country by country, and then also devise some conclusions from there. So the key insights, which are quite diverse, of course, can be subsumed to some extent in one word, which is co-creation. So it is all about really approaching the partnership and the prevalent opportunities here in the Indian market by following an approach which is based upon co-creation. So partnerships within the partnership, if you will, are essential to make the last mile happen, which is the business involvement, the transfer of technology, the pilot projects that Birgit has also touched upon just now. So the role of the member states, of course, here is also really significant, and that is a given fact. It's not a secret. They're quite active here in India, supporting their businesses as much as they can, as well as the bilateral chambers, of course, and other business support organizations. So all of them play a facilitating or a catalyzing role in creating those linkages, these connections, and making businesses aware of what's happening here. And that was also one of the main insights, that if we at all are able to speak about market access barriers or kind of missing links, then it is information, relevant information, which is eventually also insights that come from those who work on a day-to-day basis under the partnership, who actually know on the ground for example, when we talk about wastewater projects, how does that look like in India? And I think many of you joining us from afar, from Europe or other countries, they might have the same questions. How does a project look like in India? Can you compare it to China? Can you compare it to even Europe? So what are the particularities here? And I think that's one of the key ambitions and also objectives that we have as a cooperation partner with a focus on businesses, to really create that transparency, share those information. And this session is already part of a larger agenda where we try to actually do that. Another important point is, of course, what are the ongoing projects? We're very happy to have here today a representative of Invest India, the National Investment Promotion Agency. They would share some insights on that particular topic, to really get a feel for the market, maybe from a bird's eye view, before we then dive into those particularities of the Indian market. Yeah. All of this eventually points then to a conducive collaboration framework that we as a partnership or as a cooperation partner of that try to establish. And one important element here is really also to do that in a very demand-driven manner. So whichever areas have been identified or detected to be of priority, be it for the governments, for the states, for the municipalities, for the urban local bodies, even for the local industry, who might look for a relevant technology from Europe, knowing that similar problems have been encountered some years ago there. All of this contributes to a demand-driven approach that we would like to pursue here. And that also translates into a call for action, of course, to you, to the business support organizations based here in India as well, to pinpoint maybe from your own interactions with counterparts, with partners, where such opportunities or issues could be taken up and also then approached by us. Another area which is quite interesting and equally challenging is the transfer of technology. So here we also have, as part of EBTC, an IP forum in-house. So this component of transfer of technology then goes hand in hand with the technical expertise of the IEWP, our business activities, pilot project initiation, and then with this very focused support in terms of IP management and valid strategies. So on this regard, we're going to have a session in May if you're interested in that. Right. So given that, of course, the European Union, and that's one of the key stakeholders of the partnership, is quite diverse. It is all about recognizing that this partnership is a very powerful tool for individual countries alike and businesses as well, given that whatever you already do with the businesses, with your respective partners, institutions, research initiatives or programs, that can be fostered or catalyzed through an additional linkage to the IEWP. And that's the kind of value proposition we would like to co-create again here in this sense as well with you together. So it's not a very rigid structure that we're operating in, but we really invite all of you, be it here or in Europe, to join hands, share your expectations, your information with us, and then we can really design some specific hand-holding activities for those who would eventually implement solutions that are relevant for the water sector. Another question that we usually get, especially from the businesses themselves, is how would we finance what we do here? Like, is there any way that we could get funds, that we could get any sort of financial support? Of course, there's no straightforward answer to that. You always have to see all the different parameters and really look at the context in which you find yourself. But these kind of sessions also have the purpose to inform you and make you aware of existing support programs that could be of interest, One that I'd like to talk about today is the DEVELOP PP program. That's an initiative by the German Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development. While it is a program by the German government, it is indeed open to the entire European Union and the EFTA states. So it goes beyond Germany, and it targets companies that have a good idea, that have actually a concept or a model that like to implement in an emerging market. India is one of them. And then they can actually, through an application process that I'll show you here, they can, when they're qualified, they can receive funds up to 2 million euros. So it starts from 100,000 euros up to 2 million. However, minimum 50% of the entire project cost has to be borne by the company. And interesting is also maybe to mention that it doesn't necessarily have to be just one single company, but it can also be a multifold constellation with an alliance of companies that together develop an approach, a business model across sectors. Water is, of course, one key sector, and then apply for that and get some financial support. So this is the process, and I'm very happy to announce that we are right before the next circle, which starts on 15th of February. This is when the idea competition, as they call it, is announced. So you would find all the information on the website, which is also called developpp.de. And it starts with the application that can either be routed through the DEG or through the GIZ. And so the GIZ, as you know now from Birgit's introduction, is the German Corporation for International Cooperation. If you go the route through the GIZ, which we would warmly recommend to you, given that we're here on site for you and can kind of guide you, then we can share all relevant insights, support that you require to make an informed decision, whether you can qualify for that, and what are the kind of details that you should be aware of along the way. Here, I've just summarized some of the criteria. I think we don't have to go through all of them in detail. However, probably especially for those watching us from Europe, they might be interested in going through that and see whether they would qualify. That's the most important part to understand. And what I'd like to highlight, though, is that the project which can qualify for this fund really has to make an impact with regard to sustainable development goals. So it's not just a commercial model that a jury would assess and evaluate and then kind of on the basis of that grant the fund, but it actually also has to have like a social implication which can translate into jobs created, an impact made in terms of empowerment, in terms of environment, sustainability, resource efficiency, etc. So this is very much aligned with the spirit of this India-EU water partnership, where it is all about co-creating, as I said, collaborating, and making an impact that goes beyond a commercial model. And on this note, I'll invite you, before we get to the actual transfer of intelligence, market intelligence from our experts here in the room, to ask us some questions, give some feedback, or interact in any shape or form if you have anything you would like to highlight here. Anyone? Then if there's no input from the audience here, I would right away proceed with the next point in the interest of time as well. As I said, a very warm welcome to our colleagues from Invest India, Mr. Divay Pranav, Senior Assistant Vice President. Thank you very much.
So good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, especially those who are on site and those people who are joining us on this webcast. I am Divay Pranav, and I lead the construction and infrastructure vertical at Invest India, and I also work with the Ministry of Jal Shakti to on the various water-related initiatives. So today in my presentation in the next 10 minutes, we will touch upon the basic main opportunities which are there in wastewater reuse sector in India. And we will also look at some project-related information across multiple states of India. Quickly, an introduction to Invest India. So Invest India is National Investment Promotion and Facilitation Agency of Government of India. It operates under the aegis of Ministry of Commerce and Industry, and this agency is responsible to act like an interface between the government as well as the private sector of India. And we work to facilitate the market entry of foreign companies, including the companies from the European market, across number of sectors. One of the initiatives that we have undertaken, and I would request you to make a note of it, is the India Investment Grid. This is an online repository of investable projects across a range of sectors and of course pan-India. On this slide, you can look at some projects pertaining to wastewater that we have on our portal. And the web address of the India Investment Grid is www.indiainvestmentgrid.gov.in. So I'll encourage all of you to look at the opportunities available on our portal. Coming at the wastewater treatment projects across India, a rough estimate tells us that there are roughly 2,000 projects across states and union territories in India, which are being planned or under the implementation mode, or which have just been recently completed. Majority of these opportunities are coming up from the western states like Maharashtra, Gujarat, including and some southern states like Tamil Nadu, Telangana, and which actually contribute to bulk of the wastewater generated in the country. But the current situation in Indian market is not that good when it comes to wastewater treatment. So roughly 70% of the wastewater which is getting generated in the urban and rural areas, it is going untreated, and this is actually going into the river streams and polluting the fresh surface as well as the groundwater which is available in the country. The government has taken a note of it, and in the last 3 or 4 years in particular, we are seeing a range of new projects being planned by the governments, and the implementation on this front is also improving rapidly. One of the main initiatives which I would like to highlight today is the Clean Ganga initiative, which is being implemented by the National Mission for Clean Ganga. And here the planned expenditure is roughly $3 billion, and the project implementation is on for the last 3 years or so. Besides the initiatives which are mentioned on the slide, which is the Amrut Smart Cities initiative, I would like to highlight one very major initiative which is recently started by the government. It is called Jal Jeevan Mission, and it is a new initiative because it has just started by the Modi government when they came into power. And this initiative is about providing tap water to every rural household. And the idea is that by 2024, we will connect every rural household by a fresh tap water connection. And the budgetary outlay for this program is roughly $51 billion. And there are massive opportunities which are available for the private sector. And I'll encourage you to go online on the website of Ministry of Jal Shakti and look at the operational guidelines of the Jal Jeevan Mission. A rough analysis of how the waste water treatment projects and how these projects are available or being planned across multiple states of India. So on your screen, you can look at the top 15 states where wastewater treatment projects are currently in planning and nascent stages. Of course, Gujarat with 138 projects leads the list. And there are some other prominent states like Punjab, Karnataka, Uttar Pradesh, and Maharashtra. Now, this is in terms of the number of projects. Now, if you look at the value of the projects which are currently being planned across Indian states, then western part of India, especially Gujarat and Maharashtra, lead the league table. And we believe that roughly 50 to 60% of the new business opportunities in the wastewater treatment sector will come from the western part of India. Besides that, the Clean Ganga project across 5 states in the northern part of India, Uttarakhand, Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, Jharkhand, and West Bengal, will constitute around 20 to 25% opportunities in terms of value. Just to highlight some recent initiatives by the government, we have created a new ministry by the name of Ministry of Jal Shakti, and this is indicative of the planning which is happening at the central government level, where we are looking at the water issues in a little more holistic manner. The erstwhile Ministry of Water Resources, River Development and Ganga Regeneration has become a department under the new Ministry of Jal Shakti. On the financial side, I believe that the presenters after me will be discussing this thing in detail. But the hybrid annuity model, which is a new model for public-private partnership, is being introduced in the water sector, where government will be funding 40% of the project cost during the construction phase, and remaining 60% of the cost will be invested by the contractor in the construction phase and will be recovered by the contractor through quarterly annuity payments over the next 15 years. So this is a major initiative in the water sector, especially from introducing a new financial model is concerned. There is a lot of focus on water treatment and reuse, because partly, although there has been a focus on water treatment for quite some time in the country, but because of poor implementation of regulations, the reuse in this sector has been relatively less. But to our understanding, several industrial projects across India are currently facing shortage of water for their manufacturing process. Some of the sectors which are severely impacted by the shortage of water are thermal power plants, paper and pulp plants, steel manufacturing facilities, chemicals and refineries. And several states in India have taken policy interventions to enhance usage of wastewater which is coming from sewage treatment plants. Now, states like Gujarat, Karnataka, Punjab, Telangana, Maharashtra have specific policies encouraging use of water from sewage treatment plants. And the private sector and the public sector units across these states are being encouraged to lay down pipelines to fetch water from sewage treatment plants. Another important development is the focus on operation and maintenance, because government agencies can end up creating a lot of new assets, but it is extremely important that those assets are utilized effectively to the full potential. One new initiative that we have seen in the last 1 or 2 years is focus on one city, one operator model, which means that one big city, the entire sewage network, entire water treatment network of that city would be handed over to one contractor, so that it is easier for the project management authority to look after that project, to manage that contractor, and plus better outcomes can be achieved through implementation of project in those cities. Now, the usual model for one city, one operator is that the concession period is going to be for 10 years, plus a possibility of extended the concession period for another 5 years. This experiment is currently being done in multiple cities of Uttar Pradesh. Specifically, if we look at the example of a fairly big city and the leather tanning cluster of India, that is Kanpur city, we have roughly 1.5 years back, we allotted the entire sewage management infrastructure to two large Indian contractors, Shapurji Palonji and SSG Infratech. Besides that, Varanasi, multiple contractors are currently working on construction of new STPs, and very soon it is expected that probably on the operation and maintenance side also an intervention would be taken. Similarly, Lucknow, which is another big city in the northern India, has handed over the operation and maintenance part to Suez, which is a US-based company, including handing over of the existing sewage network for 10 years. And I believe that a lot of European players which are currently looking to enter Indian market, the point which I want to make is that there are opportunities in terms of creating new infrastructure. There are opportunities in providing technology, partnering with Indian companies for providing equipment which are required for these STPs. Plus, there are opportunities available on the operation and maintenance side as well. Just a few big projects which I would like to highlight over here. So besides the central government initiatives, we believe that a lot of lakes and water bodies at city and state level also needs conservation activity. One big example are several lakes in the city of Bengaluru, which require interventions in terms of setting up new sewage treatment plants. I've already mentioned about the Namami Gange project, which requires interventions across 5 northern Indian states and creation of 3,600 MLD of sewage treatment capacity. Mumbai City is trying to set up 6 new STPs, and I believe in the month of March there would be tendering activity which will happen in the Mumbai City, and players who are interested can line up to explore these opportunities. Delhi has taken several big interventions. In fact, one of the largest single location STP in the country has been set up in the Delhi city. Likewise, smaller sewage treatment plants are also being planned all across the city. So just to highlight, now these are limited number of opportunities. There are a lot more opportunities which are available in the Indian market. Entire the value chain of water, right from the purification of drinking water, supply of that drinking water to household, and then management of the grey water which is coming out of the households. And we will encourage European companies to explore these opportunities. You can always look at our website as well as explore the tenders and projects which we regularly are uploading on the India Investment Grid. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pranav. May I now request Mr. Ajay Saxena, expert under the IEWP with a focus on PPP structures, and thereafter Mr. Dinesh Pardasani, who is also an expert in this context under the IEWP on project structures, and he's a legal partner as well of a firm here in Delhi, to commence with the knowledge sharing session on project structures and business engagement in wastewater treatment solutions and reuse of wastewater.
Thank you, Judith. Good afternoon, all of you. So, I'm Ajay Saxena. I have worked as PPP expert for Maharashtra from Asian Development Bank for quite a number of years. I have worked across these sectors, including water and wastewater also. I'm currently engaged with Government of Maharashtra and its agencies and Indian Port Association in the capacity of PPP expert, and also with the EBTC as the expert on the matter. So, I will be here again after Dinesh, who is the legal expert on the matter, finishes his presentation on the legal aspects and the regulatory aspects. Just to give you a small overview, which the presenter before me has already presented. It is the India generates, you can see on this slide that India generates more than 38,000 million liters of sewage every day. That's the volume and that's the magnitude. Less than the 30% which is collected is treated, and that is also then goes to the freshwater bodies or the sea. So it is not being recycled or used for most of the time. Many of the cities, either they don't have the capacity, or they don't have the plant, or they don't have the network to distribute it further. The presenter before me has shown some of the initiatives. These are very, very recent initiatives in the last 1, 2 years or 3 years. And I'm very hopeful that the initiative is taken forward and many more cities will come under the umbrella. You can see the reasons are plenty. This is a newer sector. This is challenging. We will talk about the individual challenges later in the part of the presentation. But the main challenges are the lack of the capacities, the poor maintenance of the water distribution network at the water plants. The sources are limited. The same water is being used for many, many things. And the cost of the production of the recycled water is too high for the cities to take it up. These are generally not self-financing, and the government has to come up with the newer financing models. I am very happy to see that the HAM model is already in place, which was there in the earlier with road sector. Now it is available for water sector. This will definitely infuse some thing to the sector. If we look at, there was a study for 44 cities. So it is just the slide to show you that where we are standing today. These are the other initiatives which was presented earlier. Apart from that, 44 cities have generated 7,900 million liters a day. The existing treatment capacity is 5,200, and there is a huge gap of 2,700 million liters a day to be treated only in those 44 cities, apart from the cities that have been. So you can see below there are still more than almost 23 cities who have either less than 10% treatment or no treatment at all. We have Several places we have the treatment plants who are doing the primary and secondary treatment, and that too it is safer to then put it into the fresh water or to the sea. The tertiary treatment which is required for the treated water to be reused is still in very small cities, in very smaller in number in the cities across India. And good initiative is being taken. 6 projects are coming up with Mumbai, with Nagpur, and this thing. Those some of the case studies we prepared. We will take you with the case studies later. I now request Dinesh, who is the legal expert, Dinesh Padasani, who is the legal expert on the regulatory aspects and the across the infrastructure sector. He has worked with various PPP projects and knows what is lacking in the regulatory sides and some of the financing structure side also. I'll come back with you again on the case studies and the major challenges and the opportunities that still exist, though the challenges are there. Dinesh.
Thank you, Mr. Saxena. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dinesh Pardasani, and I am working with EBTC on this IEWP initiative. I'm also a partner at Link Legal, a full-service law firm in India, having offices in all the major cities in India, and I'm heading the projects and infrastructure sector. Now, I work on multiple infrastructure sector, and I've worked extensively with the PPP expert in many cities in India, including Mr. Saxena. And before I start my presentation, I just want to mention an instance. Like I work a lot on renewable projects. So I was in London last year, and we were all talking about setting up these renewable projects, especially solar projects. So I thought, look, it's a simple project, set up panels, and government is also talking about phasing thermal and bringing solar and wind projects. So someone asked me that, look, your country is thinking about putting up all these solar panels. Where will you get water to clean it in future? That's where it hit me that, look, even for renewable projects like simple solar project, we need water. So we can phase out these thermal projects, but at the end of the day, it is water that will be required to clean these solar panels so that they can generate electricity. So that is the importance of water in not only sectors which my other speaker spoke about, but a project like renewable as well. So that's the importance of water in our country. Now moving on to my presentation. It's very important to understand the framework for water in India, because that's where the solution lies. That's where the initiatives by government can take care of this problem. Now, in India, the powers are divided between center and state. There are certain sectors where only center can decide, like defense sector. Only center can decide and state has no role to play. Electricity. Now, electricity, both state and center can decide and pass regulations or make laws for it. So far as water is concerned, strangely, it is within the powers of the state. So state can frame laws, state can form regulations, and it is the responsibility of the state to provide water to its citizen. Now, since it is a state subject, states implement these projects through various municipalities, through boards. They have their own legislation for it. They provide their own policies, and all these projects which state implements, either they are done through their budgets or the funds given by multilateral agencies like ADB, World Bank. So that's where the funding comes from. Now, what is center's role? Now, because it's not center's role on water, of course, rivers is center's role, but so far as providing water and treating water is state subject, center provides some defining norms. It provides technical assistance from its own funds. It provides funding to these states like viability gap funding, or sometimes they form specific funds which will only implement these water projects. So that's how they grant to the states to implement these projects. So what is required now to implement these water related projects? We need some uniformity. Now, uniformity can be brought in by central government. Now, to give you an example, solid waste management is a problem in India. Different states were following their different processes. But when center came up with a solid waste management policy, that's where the projects started moving. And today we have successful waste management projects where we have been able to take care of waste. So similarly, government is certainly trying. We need a policy which is applicable across the country, and of course then states can either adopt or implement. And center has come out with a water policy which some of the states partially have implemented and adopted. There should be a common policy on pricing because water is a sensitive subject. It's not like a metro project or electricity where consumers are willing to pay. It's always a sensitive subject in India about water. So there has to be a regulatory authority which can regulate the prices. That is what is required, and the government, central government, has come out with this water policy 2012, which has partially been adopted by some states. Now, this provides for establishment of a water regulatory authority. It provides for water disputes tribunal at center level. Now, as we all know that state, when giving these contracts to private developers, they themselves become the contracting authority as well as the regulator. So center is proposing that we need to have a regulator so that state does not play a dual role. They don't become a contracting authority as well as a regulator. And of course, they are promoting these PPP projects. As my friend from Invest India mentioned, there are a lot of initiatives taken, and HAM, I will be mentioning it later in my presentation, how HAM is being implemented. They have successfully implemented, but that sort of should be implemented across the country by all the states. Now, I will just mention how it was in 1990s and how it has changed post 2000. Water has always been a sensitive subject in India. These bulk water tariffs were unaffordable. These projects generated controversy because when these were privatized, or when they were even discussing about privatizing, there was a lot of hue and cry by the citizens, by these government officials saying that, look, you cannot be allowing private players to control water because they'll make money out of it, and it's a necessity. So all those issues were created when government was talking about privatization. Of course, there is always political opposition to it. Projects were questioned, so they were not successful. It was a very difficult task to privatize utilities. Even when electricity was privatized, there was a hue and cry. Water, of course, is a very sensitive subject. But now, in 2020, we are even talking about privatizing our railways, which is the last thing everybody thought would be done. Metros have already been privatized. They have already been given to private developers. I myself have worked on these 5 PPP projects and they are running successfully. So now even water or wastewater treatment has now been started privatized and people have accepted it. Now it was a question of viability issues. So in post 2000, the role of private parties expanded. There was these encouraging policies, as my friend mentioned, that a lot is being done. Now, because these water projects are not viable in itself, there are grants being given. The tariff is being prefixed. Favorable metering and tariff policies are coming up. So all efforts are being made to provide an environment where private developers can invest, because without private investment, it is very difficult to achieve what we are trying to achieve. It's an example which I came across where, as I said, it's a state subject. Chennai has taken an initiative where they have laid down that, look, the city has to follow these norms. And it happened because Chennai has been facing water crisis every alternative year. So which made them to think that, look, we cannot let water affect the city. So they have made these bylaws, which I think every state through center should implement them. They have said there has to be mandatory wastewater recycling. Even water for toilets have to be used for groundwater recharge after a simple organic filtration. Now it's a very simple process, but someone has to think about it. In multi-story apartments, the rule says that recycled water should be used for toilet flushing. Mandatory for a new or renewed water or sewer connection must include the installation of rainwater harvesting. There have been sewage treatment plants with total capacity of 378 MLD have been set up. With all these efforts, Chennai has achieved 15% of city's water demand through water recycling. Around 8% of the treated wastewater is sold to industries and up to 40.7% secured from interstate to wastewater reuse. So these are the efforts made by Chennai because they face those problems. Now, we should not wait for other cities to face similar problems and then come up with these bylaws. Now, last year, or maybe last to last year, a city like Shimla is in north of India. It's a hill station. It snows a lot. Nobody could think that water crisis can be in Shimla, but it did. There was long queues for water. The water wasn't available. So before that happens, I think every state needs to implement these steps so that those crisis situations don't arise. Now, I will not go into detail about these structures, but these are the structures which are broadly available for implementing projects in India, and they are no different from Western countries. We are learning from those countries, but of course, India has its own peculiarities which have to be taken care of. Of course, EPC is the best model where a contractor can be given a contract, the money will be paid by contracting state, and the project can be implemented. But there is a limit to which state can spend money through EPC contracts. And it is also difficult for state entities to operate and maintain them in a more efficient manner like a private player can do. So then they started talking about, let's have DBF FOT model or BOT model, where build, own, operate model, which is there in all the sectors, that look, let the private player come, let him implement the project, let him collect charges and make it viable. So people started implementing those projects. They thought if they are successful in road, they are successful in metros, they are successful in electricity, why don't we implement those similar structures in water as well, or water recycling? I remember in 2011, I did a project for Delhi Jal Board in Delhi, where they were talking about sludge treatment. AECOM was there, the best consultant. This was funded by World Bank. Everybody was keen to implement this project. We drafted EOI, there was a lot of interest. We drafted RFP, a lot of interest, but ultimately no bids came because viability was an issue. So we have to think about restructuring those models. So BOT model is obviously not a model for water sector because it's not a viable project. You don't earn that much from selling recycled water. So then government has to pitch in, and that's where government has come out with a HAM model. Now, HAM model was initially implemented by NHAI, which is the road authority in India. Now, NHAI road projects were also doing fine, but then they realized that, look, if we have to build up bigger projects and more projects, we need to give comfort to even foreign players so that they get comfort that they are not taking risk, or this risk is shared between private players and the authority. So that's where HAM model was implemented, and it was a huge success for road sector. So government thought about implementing the same in even these water-related projects. And as my friend from Invest India mentioned about this HAM model, which is being implemented and projects are coming up in Ganges project. So they are started implementing all these model, and I will just briefly talk about this hybrid annuity model, and it can vary from project to project, and rightly so, because every project has its own peculiarities. Because I have done these different sectors, let me give you an example how we learn from our mistakes. I remember I advised on this Delhi Airport Express line metro, which connects airport to the city. Concession agreement was drafted and it was implemented. Now, same structure or same concession agreement, even Bangalore was thinking of implementing it, but it wasn't successful, because you have to understand that even in a metro sector, same project but in different cities will have its own peculiarities. So you have to have a concession agreement which suits a particular project. You may have different state laws, so all that has to be kept in mind when you're implementing a project. But broadly, the way HAM model works is at 25 to 40%, and as I said, depending upon a project cost is paid by government, and remaining is funded by a private player, and private player will of course put in its equity or will get debt, and debt, sorry, not or but and debt. The fees or tax or the charges will be collected by the government, so that private player is not responsible for collecting these charges, because sometimes there is a delay, there is a non-payment. That private player is not taking that risk. There is annuity payments for the private player, so at least he is assured of these payments. Of course, there will be some performance criteria, but at least he is assured that these payments will be made. And lenders get a lot of comfort when it comes to annuity payment, because they know that the revenue risk is taken by government. They are taking responsibility to collect these charges. And of course, it provides for termination compensation in case of failure. Say, suppose government is at fault and the private player is not able to achieve the performance criteria, or not able to even implement the project because of government's fault, government is there to compensate them. So that is the benefit of hybrid model, that government is willing to share the risk and make the project viable. And therefore, there are a lot of opportunities due to this HAM sector in this area, where a lot of projects are coming, where private players can come not only from India but overseas as well. And I must mention that India itself, through its banks will not be able to implement all these projects. We do require overseas funding, and we do realize that bankability is important overseas. I worked in Allen Overy in Dubai, and I understand that before a project is implemented, a lender looks at the documents and then they are bid out. So bankability is very important, and we do understand that we need to provide documents where lenders are willing to put their money, because at the end of the day, private player will put what, 25%, whereas 75% money or 70% is put by lenders, and they're always concerned whether their money is safe or not. And India being a country where we have strong judiciary, we have strong executive and legislation, the investment is safe. And if the documents are also bankable, it's a right place to invest. So it is just an example of how Andhra Pradesh implemented their projects. They are in fact providing 50% funding from government and 50% by private companies. 50% of the investment is repaid through annuity and O&M cost. They have been able to set up these FSTPs in Andhra. Swachh Andhra Corporation has awarded the contracts which will monitor construction O&M performance of these projects. So it is not that government, after giving these projects, have left it to the private player. Because they are taking responsibility for annuity, they have their own supervisors or independent consultants who keep reporting to government, and depending upon whether they have performance issues there or not, these payments are made or annuity payments are released. HAM, of course, I've already mentioned about the benefits. It improves efficiency and effectiveness in operations. So it is a successful model. Andhra Pradesh has already implemented. It's a structure, I'm sure you will be aware of it. Like every PPP project, this is also a model, as I was mentioning, that concessionaire gets funding from the government. They put their equity and debt. They supply water to consumer, but the collection responsibility is on the authority. And then authority makes water payment, which goes to concessionaire, and they repay their debt. There is also an independent engineer who keeps reporting to the government before annuity payments are released. I must also mention from my experience that even if in HAM model or any other concession model, any bidder or developer overseas have any bankability issues, they can always make representation to government. And I can share experience which I had when SoftBank from Japan thought about investing in India in solar projects. They said we will implement 20 gigawatt, which is 1/5 of India's target for solar projects. When they looked at the PPA, they said, look, we can't develop these projects on this PPA. We can do a pilot project, but JBIC is not going to lend it to me. And if I want to implement this 20 gigawatt, I want a solid document. At that point of time in PPA, and I won't blame government, because solar projects we thought it'll be 20 megawatt, 10 megawatt, 5 megawatt. And whereas in thermal, we talk about 13-20 megawatt plant. So government is willing to provide a robust power purchase agreement. But when it came to solar projects, they always had a mindset that it'll be 5 megawatt, 10 megawatt. So they did not provide for a robust PPA. But when they saw that we are talking about 200, 500, now 1 gigawatt projects, we need to now provide a robust document. So SoftBank, along with JBIC and other developers and other lenders, made representation to Ministry of Power. They made representation to MNRE, which is the Renewable Ministry. They met NTPC. So efforts were made to improvise the PPA. In last 2 years, if you see the PPA, it is radically different from what it was. And today, banks are willing to fund these projects. Termination compensation wasn't there. Today, termination compensation is there in those PPAs. So, point I'm trying to make is that if any lender overseas or any company developer is willing to invest, but they feel that there are certain issues in the document, government is willing and open to hear and is willing to make changes in those documents. I would say the document qualities have obviously improved, but it wants further improvisation, because it's always a world is changing and you need to take care of problems which you have faced in the past. So those documents government is willing to modify. All you need to do is make representation to them. And if IEWP initiative is taken and government is informed about certain issues which developers do face, I'm sure government will be very open to listen to all this. I myself have got and made presentation to them, talked about precedents, and government has modified these documents. So that's the example. I mean, that was the rationale for giving this example on solar projects. Moving on to almost my last slide. These are, to my mind, key takeaways which are we need to look at. So what government, obviously private players look for adequate guarantee of these funds during construction project operation, which is being attained by HAM model. The bid process management, project structure and contracts terms have to be robust. Government is looking at it, but as I said, if you have any comments or all people who are listening to this and are interested in India, they can always make representation to government. also developing capabilities at ULBs, and that's where Mr. Saxena comes handy to all these ULBs. In Maharashtra, he has done a lot of work where he has provided them useful insights where projects can be successful. There has to be a valid assessment, demand and willingness to pay so that there is accuracy in tariff and revenue, which is what the work of consultants when you're bidding out a project. Innovative financing schemes, mechanisms by government to address cost overruns and revenue uncertainties. These are the problems which you face in these projects. But government is of course making efforts, but still of course it's a continuous process because there is a long way to go. A number of projects are there, efforts have to be made on continuous basis, and I think people like you and me have to make all these efforts so that wherever there are shortcomings in these documents, we should be able to sort it out. There are a number of projects. It's a question of people bidding for these projects, and if modifications required, do it. And I think it'll be a great success after maybe say 4 or 5 years. We'll see that the things have streamlined and we have regulators, and we'll be achieving what we want to achieve today. So I think that's where I would like to end, and I would like to call Mr. Saxena to talk about certain case studies because he has seen all these projects being implemented and the problems he has come across. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pardasani. Just before we hand it back over to Mr. Saxena, just a brief announcement. Thank you very much, everyone from Europe joining us via webcast. We're getting a lot of questions. We're going to make sure that we'll address them in the Q&A session. But one announcement also for the audience here, we will definitely share with you the slides, because I've seen some people taking pictures, so you'll get the info material, and we'll share that via email post the session. Thank you.
Earlier, I'm a lawyer, so I would charge for these slides, but for you guys, it's free.
Special gift. Thank you.
Thank you, Dinesh. So, welcome back. I am taking you through 2-3 case studies. Then we will discuss in detail the challenges and the opportunities. And then I have drafted a small suggestion for everybody or all the stakeholders to look into. And this is my opinion. In my opinion, can make some success or some inroads in the wastewater management sector also. The purpose of showing the case studies, after 2-3 case studies have already been shown, is that to see that the whenever we talk in the bullet points, the innovative financing structures, we should see whether those things are really being applied in some projects or not. So the first project is the Nagpur sewage treatment plant, whereby the key highlights is that Nagpur Municipal Corporation and Mahajanko, they jointly proposed for the project. In the India Invest slide, we saw that the suffering sectors are the power plants mainly. They are not getting the water, and if they are not getting the water, still getting the things done, it means that they are using most of the time the fresh water, which was for the drinking purposes and not for all the other usages which can otherwise be utilized. So this was in the HAM model. Dinesh has just finished. Even in the Government of India scheme also, HAM model talks about the 40% capital subsidy and 60% the operators fund or the manufacturers fund, which he takes it into 15 years equal quarterly installments, of course with the interest charged over that 60%. But there was earlier a GNRM scheme also, whereby they had funded to the extent of 70% grant, and this was 50% from the central government, 20% from the state government, and the rest of the 30% was to come from the municipal authorities. In this case, Nagpur Municipal Corporation has asked this capital cost to be borne by Mahajanko, who agreed, and then even the O&M cost was agreed by the Mahajanko for all 30 operating years. They also paid the effluent charges at the rate of around 3.5 rupees per kiloliter, and which is coming around to 1.383 million every year with the escalation charged over the agreement was signed for 30 years. This is the project which is still running. what did it do? When the demand assessment was done, there was a huge demand for investment demand for 2000 crores, which still was not able to satisfy the whole demand for the water from all the sources. We all must understand water is a natural resource. Water is whenever the sources come, the sources are limited, the water gets depleted, and if we don't reuse and don't recycle the water, we are definitely going scarcity in the water. These water scarcity is going to come to us. We have seen Chennai going for longer days without any water. Latur is one such place in Maharashtra where we don't have the water for number of days. And I don't know whether you have heard it or not. Many of you would have read in the newspaper that there was a train with the full of water tankers sent to Latur some 2-3 years back. That was the scarcity, the kind of scarcity that we are talking about in the water sector. That's how this is very, very important to be very, very sensitive to this subject. Additional sources will be at the higher capital cost. If we start developing new dams means that there is a new capital cost which is huge in this thing, and whether this cost would be able to finance itself or something, this is still seen. Whether we have a lower cost models available or we can do some alternative sources, that's where we have been working on. There are interstate issues at that time when it was done, because Nagpur is closer to the border and there was no additional water available for the industrial and irrigational use from the major identified sources nearby the area. This was the existing model on the left hand side on your screen, whereby every water was going to all of the three of them. So it was going to the industry, it was going to the drinking water and to the domestic in the cities also, and it was going to for the irrigation also. So we can see that everybody was polluting the water, it was going straight to the sea, or the polluted water was getting generated further into the downstream. With the project in place, we have the model where the water goes to the domestic first, it is reused, treated and goes back to the industry. Some water is still, because the treated water still is not sufficient, the water goes to the industry. They also treat it, recycle it, reuse it, and then the treated water goes to the fresh water or the river and the sea. Nagpur is having a river, so that goes to the river. What did it do? Besides the figures in the table, which you can always see and understand, these are just the numbers. What it did, it reduced the investment size, because doing a dam or creating a new water source would be costly, much more costlier than doing a STP water, and whereby when it was being supplemented by somebody who is partnering and the grants were available. So that's why it was done. Surplus water in 2031, it has been proposed that there would be a surplus water. So from water scarcity, from the water starved nation, we will move to the water surplus. This has been envisaged. Less energy consumption, because the water lifting is not involved. We are not lifting from the dam and pumping it to the downstream. This is where the energy is also lesser consumed. Again, a lesser O&M is required. Surplus water for future need would be available. Dinesh has already talked about the structure. This is no different. There is an escrow account, and just picking up a slight deviation here. When Dinesh talked about the robustness coming up in the model concession document, so it is not the termination payment is not only available at the government default or the force majeure. The termination payment is available for even the concessionaire default also. In this case, the only thing is that the construction should be over, the default has happened later, and the concessionaire's equity is not paid. So, but the debt is secured. So whosoever is sitting or whosoever is watching this and feels that I am available for the financing side, so they are rest assured. So those financiers are paid back to the extent of 90 to 95% of the debt, or whatever the debt is balanced. Key benefit of the project. This is very important. And why it is important? Because I'll be dealing with this thing, how to make these financially unviable projects still financially viable. So this has saved 110 MLD of fresh water. This is very, very important to note here. Fresh water has the cost which nobody can bear, because the water if the rain doesn't come, the water doesn't come. So if whatever the water we are saving with the alternative use of different water, I think there should not be any small cost attached to the water, that if 8 rupees per kiloliter is charged from the domestic user, it is not meant for that. It is huge resource available to us, which should be suitably costed, not from the users, but from the governance side. New STP of sewage treatment plant of 130 MLD will improve ecology. Of course, we know that these are all important things. Reliable and economical sources of water for power plants. So the power plants are not dependent upon the water which is available for the domestic, and whether how much water they are getting or how much water they are not getting. And if the treatment plant is already operational, so they are 100% sure that they are going to get their water back. This cost center, or where the water was treated and been put into the river, when it has been recycled and the user charges have been imposed, the cost center has become the profit center. It is not yet, we can say, that fully profitable to the in the manner that we always expect a profit to be, but definitely it is meeting the cost and it is earning more. Opens the possibility of swap of existing freshwater consumption, which is again the repetition that when you do this, there is more water available for the people to drink, which is the responsibility of the government to provide the water. The case of Navi Mumbai is on the basis of whatever the fresh water is made available to the citizens. This is the network of water. This is a water map. These are the sources available, and you can see there is a city of Mumbai on the left hand side. On the center there is Navi Mumbai, and Navi Mumbai is supplied by these 2-3 sources, the water from these 2-3 sources. There is an MIDC, Maharashtra Industrial Development Corporation, which is responsible for industrial promotion, industrial development in Maharashtra. They also require lots of water for the industries. So the key highlight of the project is there is a 40 MLD tertiary treatment plant which is being put up with the ultra filtration technology, with the ultraviolet treatment available to them. There would be 3 elevated services reservoir of 2.5 ml, 7.75 MLD and 1.5 ml at Koper Khandi at different places. The transmission main of 24.4 kilometer is being laid down, and there would be a distribution network for the treated water. We also have to understand there is an additional cost involved if we have to reuse the water. The waste water is to be recycled, so it cannot be pumped into the fresh water pipes which go to the house for the drinking purposes, but there is a additional distribution network which is required to have the treated water, which generally with the all technologies and with all the small TV clips or the video clips that we have seen, that the tertiary treated water can be sipped, this thing, we all know that there would always be an apprehension of drinking that water. So we require the additional network also. There would be 2 tertiary treatment plants of 20 MLD capacities each. There would be a 16.5 years of operation and maintenance. The bidder has been identified, who is the Tecton Engineering and Construction India Private Limited, in consortium with Eagle Infra India, on the basis of lower NPV. That was a different model of bidding tried in Navi Mumbai Corporation. So it is not only the construction cost, but it is, and that is being borrowed from the HAM model also. HAM also says that whatever what you charge for the operation and what you charge for the construction type, this thing. So the NPV of the construction and NPV of the O&M with the standard cost discounting cost, they calculate the NPV and the lowest NPV is awarded. So it is like somebody can do some injustice to the bid and just to win the bid, because he can increase the operation maintenance charges by increasing the energy charges or something, and he can lower his construction cost at the first time, but when it comes to the payment in the real monetary terms, the payment would be higher to the winning bidder. So just to avoid those anomalies, the lowest NPV is selected. So this is the water diversion. So MIDC is the owner of the dam. There is a 40 MLD water, fresh water saving, which is being saved now. The potential beneficiaries will be 3 areas, the citizens of these areas, the Kulgaon, Badlapur, Ambernath and Mira Bhayandar. These are the 3 cities in and around Mumbai. They are in Mumbai metropolitan region, so which has several other cities apart from Mumbai, if you all know about it, and the MLD waters, which is listed on the other column, which would be there. Still, if the water is saved, there is another agency work for the cities. So City Industrial Development Corporation, CIDCO, and they build the cities, they then hand it over to the municipal corporations whenever they form. Navi Mumbai is one example of that city. Naina, they have been working, they have some other areas under their command. So if water is saved, this would be handed over to CIDCO also. Thane, Ambernath, Badlapur, Mira Bhayandar, Mamai DC with the existing infrastructure, they would be the beneficiaries. If we look at the last row of the table, we can see that the production cost of this is 16.23 rupees per cubic meter, which is being sold to MIDC at 18.5. Earlier, without any this particular project, this was priced at 22.5. So there is a clear saving of 4.5, which is used to finance the project. Now the major part of the presentation, that we all know that it is to be done. We have understood that yes, there is a water scarcity in the fresh water, the limited sources are there, there is a problem, and there are every reason to believe that there has to be an alternative source of, or the alternative technologies to treat the water. But what are the challenges in the particular sector? Apart from my friends in the earlier speaking slots, they have told that the financing is one, the other thing. But if we just put it down on as a comprehensive list, we know that there is a low user base of recycled water other than the thermal plants and the or the industries. So we have to increase. What is the best next source of best next availability is that if we can put a culture of, but this is going to take a longer time, culture of that fresh water is only for the drinking purposes, even at the domestic user, and the other water, sewage treatment plant water, is for the gardening, for other things. In my own society, the STP water is used for the gardening. So to that extent, something has already happened. But with it has to come to the house also, where some cleaning and some other things can be done with the STP water. So we have to increase. Increasing the user base means the increasing of revenue. There has to be a willingness to pay for the wastewater treatment from all the stakeholders, specifically speaking the paymasters, the government side. Effective implementation of user pay principle. Irrespective of, Dinesh has, I think, used for 4-5 times, the water is very sensitive, and I 100% agree with him. Water is not only sensitive, it is politically sensitive also, which is more important to understand. So even if you do a very good job, I have not included a small presentation here, which is Aurangabad freshwater drinking water project, which was awarded successfully. ADB was supporting the structuring of the project and the transaction of the project. It was successfully awarded. It went into some initial years of implementation also, but suddenly there was a hue and cry among the people, and there was that become an agenda for some other political leaders also, that water, how can it be privatized? So the moment somebody says water is privatized, is like this becomes an issue. That has happened in Latur also, that has happened in various other cities. And I'm not talking about the about country like India only. There are other countries where it reached to a level there where the people have closed their investment, booked the losses and went away. One of such cases is in Bolivia, where even the public came on road to protest the process, to protest the project, and the army was called in. I think some people died also in the protest. So it is to that level, that sensitive. So how to increase the increase the awareness, that when we talk about, and this forum is for PPP, so we have to make people sensitive, that okay, and sensitize them also. Privatization and PPP are two very, very different things. Privatization is the government sells it out to private sector, it has no control. PPP is a regulated contract, regulated, designed, structured and transacted by the government. The person from the private sector comes only for the execution and operation, construction and operation, and some of the times only for operation also. We have seen some metro which was done by the government agencies, but they have been only operated by the private sector. So it is not that they can, it is sold. And whenever you, Dinesh has a very beautiful slide over there with all these structures were shown. You always, if you can just remind yourself or recollect that particular slide, that always ended with a T. That T was the transfer. So whatever the structure in PPP you take, it is always a transfer. There is no perpetual transfer of the asset to the private sector. This is absolutely different than this. But how many people know? How many people in the expert side also know about this fact? Why do we sign? Or if the some of the people have started in the GAVA PPP transaction, they started doing a PPP for a 99-year lease period also, which is not a PPP. 99-year lease period is like it is selling out the asset to the private sector. So those things are will not work. But definitely PPP in the HAM model, 15 years of operation maintenance. It means the 15 years, after the 15 years, the asset will come back to the government, and the government will definitely operate at the reduced price. Optimization of resources and phasing of the cost still is a problem. We generally, I think I have seen in many authorities, not in India, but all the parts of the world, many parts of the world, I must say, which I have seen, is that whenever you ask, whenever the government says that this project is to be done, they do to the next level of the authority in the government will pick up the sermon, and it will try to implement every inch of it, whether it is implementable in the first phase itself or not. Very few apply their mind that if a project is not successful or not viable financially, how to make it financially viable, just by doing in different phases also. So to spread the cost in 2-3 phases, so that when the people they start buying in, they are more willing to pay, then the bases are more, and then we can do the next phase of this thing. So that is still important. In the road sector, till the time you complete the whole road, nobody pays. That is okay. But in water sector, in treatment water, can we do only the primary, the secondary, and then tertiary for a pilot, then start doing it to the some industry, then there is a buy-in from the other stakeholders, and then we can do the whole project. Prioritization of components depending upon the resource availability. This is again the part of phasing, part of planning. This is still a challenge. If we have said there is a scheme of Government of India, so everybody will build the whole project, will try to do the whole project in a single go. Environmental laws requires treatment facilities to be established with immediate priority, whereas techno-economic consideration and town planning regulations advocate establishing the collection and conveyance system. So there is a conflict which is in existence. This challenge is to be removed. These are very high capital intensive, and they rarely generate significant revenue, because the same thing that we have been repeating time and again, that these are the user base is not enough. There are bulk water gainers, the bulk water takers, and they decide the price, or if it is not affordable to them, they don't take this thing. In many countries, many places, the organic growth has happened, and we don't know the clear distribution network under the ground. So that is, and the sewage assets, this problem is in many sectors, but more in water. Mixing of wastewater with the industrial effluent, this is still a problem. No policy encouraging reuse of the state level or ULB level. Some initiative has been taken, and if this is taken forward at a larger scale, some incentives are given. So incentive means that even if the water is priced at, to make the project viable, even if it is priced at 25 and the user was giving only 8 rupees, suddenly the 8 rupees should not become 25. We should have some subsidy, some operational incentives available to the users. If they use this thing, they will be given at a lesser price. Though it may not be 8 rupees, but it may become 10 or 12, should never become 25 also. At the ULB levels, very few ULBs. We have seen in my overview slide in my first leg, there are 44 cities. Studies shows that more than 23 cities are either less than 10% treatment available with them, or there is no treatment at all. There is no charge for the sewerage. Some municipalities, I have seen in my practical life, that some municipalities take the sewerage charges under the water charges segment itself, water charges item itself. But even in that, have they segregated to a different item or sub item in the sewerage? I have yet to see. It is a difficult proposition for the private operator to levy and collect water user charges. So good that the government has realized under HAM that they collect the water charges themselves and pay the annuity payment to the operator. Paying the annuity payment to the operator gives them one more authority, which is under the project life cycle, the planning, execution and monitoring in the PPP projects. Most of the people believe, mostly on the government side, they believe that when it is a PPP operator who has come, it is his job to save his money. So he will always do the best for the execution. No, he will not. He will do to the extent that his profit is coming. After that, he is not at all responsible. And if he is earning the profit without even maintaining the performance standards, he would be happier. So the monitoring aspect has to be done by the government only. So this performance based annuity payments gives the authority to the government, and the independent engineer, with the assistance of independent engineer and the project monitoring consultants later on at the operation side, that he maintains the asset regularly, because his quarterly payment is coming from the government. It's a politically sensitive issue we just have talked about. There are very weak penalties for non-payment, and this will remain. For the bulk, you can always impose, but for the individuals like you and me, the government cannot impose penalty that if I don't pay an electricity bill after some days or some month, some weeks, they can disconnect my electricity. But try and imagine disconnecting a water connection if I have not paid. How will I survive? It's a life and death matter for me, or for any user for that matter. So penalties will not work. So we have to think. Non-viable projects are still there. How to make it viable? I have a suggestion in the next slide. We will discuss non-payment of consumers. Even without the penalties, how can we make them aware that if we pay, we get a better service? So I think the rewriting is to be done. It is not to be seen from the how much we can generate the revenue of. It is to be seen how good facilities that we can generate, which automatically generate the better revenue. We have seen in India also, where there is a culture of, everybody talks about that every one of us keep our cities dirty or not clean or something. But the same citizen goes to the mall and he keeps the mall very, very, very clean. So it means that the culture, it is not a problem of culture, it is a problem of like how much better services that we are providing, and it induces for the user to give you the better cost also. So we have seen a person doesn't go to the single, generally doesn't tend to go to the single theater screens, but they go to the, which is lesser cost, but they go to the multiple screen theaters, which is higher cost, which gives you the popcorn for 400 rupees also, but we go and buy. It means that we are not afraid of paying more, but we are conscious of having a better services, dedicated, very committed people who are serving us. Limited availability of landfill. The land is again a natural resource. If the land is not available for solid waste, it is not available for sludge also. I'm not saying entirely not available, but this will always be a problem. So it is like more to treat. If we are going for a best of the treatment and leaving lesser effluent, lesser sludge or something, we definitely. So here, if the European business community is listening and they have the better treatment technology that can reduce these things, they are most welcome. The opportunities are plenty. That's what we have learned, that if there are problems, the problems themselves are the opportunities for somebody else to fill. If there is a gap for the user, there is a demand for the supplier. So this is so simple to understand. So the large volume of sewage offers tremendous potential for recycled water within their cities and reduce their reliance on bulk fresh water sources. We talked about it. Wastewater management is now receiving greater attention, and Divya has shown that Amrit is taking lots of this thing. There are so many cities which are being granted under this scheme of Amrit. Amrit is Atal Mission for Rejuvenation and Urban Transformation, under which various grants are given for various sectors, and wastewater has been included in that. There's more common and cost-effective technologies preferred. Where I would like to request the technologists, when I was talking to EBTC and the other people also in the earlier conferences from the European Union, and then I realized there are Australians, they are working good, there are Dutch, there are other people also. There, what is the technology doing in the optimization of cost? Technology is doing a good treatment of the water. That is one part of it. The other part of it, that if we all understood and very clearly understood from this forum, this dais itself, all the four of us have said that there is a cost which is a problem, then the technology should be, and technology means it should optimize my cost. So if there are better technologies available, please come. Next slide, you would find whom to meet also. More common, some industrial units choose to buy either raw sewage and secondary treated water. This is also an opportunity, that they say that, okay, the water treatment plant which if you have installed giving me a costlier water, I will put my plant myself and please give me the raw water itself. So that is also an opportunity. So it is not only the opportunity for the technology provider to tap the government always. You can go to the industries who are putting up these smaller plants also. Madras Fertilizers and Rashtriya Chemical Fertilizers, they have purchased the raw water and they have done their treatment plant themselves. So this is an opportunity. Large scale commercial users such as malls, office complexes, the policies are coming, the regulations are coming, they have to treat their water back there itself. So please don't look only for the larger opportunities, but there are smaller opportunities which are in abundance. Pricing remains an issue, but definitely if we create a better user base and if we are coming in the numbers, the economies of scale will surely make the things viable. This is my own suggestion. When I say my own, this is not drawn from any government policy or this thing, but definitely some of the facts. In Maharashtra, Dinesh talked about the states to form the regulatory authority. Maharashtra, fortunately, we have in existence for long. It is Maharashtra Water Resource Regulatory Authority. I had a very good meeting with the chairman of this, Mr. KP Bakshi, who is open to listen to the technology provider, who told me that if I'm speaking on this forum, I can tell the people who are technologists who can come and meet him and show him if they can bring and if they can increase the water from the available resources itself, from the available sources. Also, he is looking forward to reduce the cost if the technology providers can do, so the things can work out. So my suggestion is that this kind of an authority should be there, which should hold the water sources and which should decide which water goes to whom. In Maharashtra, apart from the cities, rest of the tariff is decided by this authority itself. So when they have a complete picture of the state, they are in a better position to price it well for the operator. Or if these things start coming up in numbers, they are smaller in number, but when they start coming in the numbers, who knows that the same projects which are not solar, we earlier knew that they were unviable even at the cost of 7 rupees, 8 rupees and 9 rupees. Yesterday or day before yesterday, I was reading in some article that it is now coming at 2.45 rupees per watt, which is amazing. Means nobody had thought that the solar would be doing this thing. So if solar can do, why not we can imagine a future, a financially viable future in sewage treatment plant or the wastewater management plant also. Can we adopt a single line principle that the fresh water, a very senior bureaucrat from the retired bureaucrat from government of Maharashtra, I met him yesterday, and he told me that he went very many number of times to Israel, and Israel has a policy that fresh water is only for drinking. So they have to work on the alternative. They have to work on the treatment plants. So they have to, the industry cannot be given a fresh water. I think this adoption of this line itself would make the many mindsets change. How do they change it? If we do a financial viability, we just forget. In most of the projects, whenever we are meeting like this, we always talk about the financial viability. We never talk about the economic viability. We never talk about the social viability or the social aspect of anything. We have reached to a stage, and the people, the users at this thing, that we have understood that we have to pay the toll. But the same people can always ask that we are paying taxes. Why don't you provide me a good road? Why don't you provide me a good drinking water? And it was the government duty to provide the drinking water. It is not available. Why it is not available? Because the fresh drinking water is available not only for the users, for the drinking purposes, but for the various other users which are not using it for drinking, and they are in abundance. So if this mindset comes, I think then we should not look at the to make the projects financially viable. We should look at from the other angle to make the water available to drink. Take the water to Latur. Why Latur suffers all the time? Why many cities in Maharashtra also, why even in Mumbai there is a water scarcity at times where is only 80 or 70% water is supplied for some times, for some days. This is where if we adopt, so even if it is charging like to make the project viable, if we have to charge the user for 35 rupees for an example, 35 rupees or 40 rupees, if we look at this thing that 50 rupees is to be given to the operator, but I can collect only 35, I will then provide the viability gap for 15. Because it is my duty as the government to provide the drinking water to the citizens. So that's where my suggested structure is. The government, so again, everything should not be done. My caveat, my suggestion to the authorities and even to the technology providers also. Doing a technology successful in Europe and doing the same technology successful in India is a two very different, diametrically opposite, sometimes diametrically opposite. We have seen in solid waste management, the same plant of Hitachi works well in Japan, doesn't work in India. It did not work well in Jabalpur also. Why it didn't work? Because the waste character is totally different. The waste character in Europe, the waste character in Jabalpur is entirely different. They come with the large scale of boulders and all those things. But even if the only solid waste comes, the wet waste or the wetness in the waste is much more. So you require more heat. So it increases the energy consumption, it increases the cost. So everything has a coiling effect. So do a pilot. Please do a pilot. And if those pilots are successful, then start increasing those pilots into a large scale number of projects. Till the time we reach to a number of projects era, definitely viability gap fund is always required. So till the time we reach to those places, those points, I believe that please continue funding the projects. Just because a private sector is there, a private sector should do all the funding, should not be the case. Government of India has for the purpose drafted the viability gap fund, has for the purpose drafted the HAM models also. Please start doing these things. There definitely would be an era where the financial viability will be achieved. I am 100% sure about it. Also in the next phase, to increase the user base, not in the first phase itself, there is a treatment plant cost itself which is costing much more than we have envisaged. Please, then once you reach to one level of maturity, the second level of maturity to increase the basis, use in your homes also, use the drinking water only for drinking. For the washing, for other things, we can use the STP water also. But for that purpose, we definitely have to have a different distribution network. So that is also to be kept in mind. Somebody can do a 50-year or 30-year planning with phase of distribution, let's say after 15 years. Please don't put a distribution network today. That was my subject, this thing. There are projects, I am told that there are people who are listening to this in Europe and who wants to know that which are all projects which are available. This is one such project which is available for this thing. This is at the project structure part level. This is the project development level. Now it has been sent to JICA for the funding. Once the funding is arrived, the bidding will happen. Please talk to the authorities. It's a Nagpur smart city. There are people who can be talked to, who can be reached. They'll be happy to meet technologists and learn. These are the 6 projects which everyone from before me have already talked about, that the projects in Mumbai are coming up. These are 6 more projects which are coming up in Mumbai. If you want, you can always keep an eye on it and participate if you wish to. From the technologist in Europe or in any part of this thing, there is always a tendency in a PPP project that a developer takes the risk. So the developer does not understand the technology sometimes. he partners with the technology. So their developer is basically, I have a money, I can take the risk, and I want to do, Mr. Saxena, I want to do some good things in the sector. So many people keep meeting me and various other officers in Maharashtra. So I want to do something. But to which extent, to what extent a financial risk can be taken? So can some model be thought by the technologies themselves, that let's put our technology first in place, do a wonderful job, take some risk, some hit on the financial returns, and can, once we have moved into and the bases have increased, viability has started coming in, I think we can always earn more money. PPPs are monopoly by law. So expecting windfall gain is only in the dreams. Wherever it is happening, they are bound to fail. So that's where we see many PPPs who were successfully running suddenly fail, because suddenly the awareness comes to the government that it is a windfall gain project. So there I would leave these things to in the mind of the people and the stakeholders. Financiers don't have to worry if a project is successfully bidded, and financiers, please do worry for the fact that if why do you expect a project developer who has won the bid and then you come in? Why don't you start at the time of project bidding with the developer, with your preferred bidder or with some bidders? Or why don't you just talk to the authorities to help them improve the viability, financial viability of the project? Thank you very much for the patient listening. These are the things that I could tell you all. If any questions, I can take from wherever, whatever you want. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mr. Ajay Saxena. Good evening, everyone. I'm Varun Saigal. I'll be helping you in moderating this session of Q&As to make sure that we get the right questions and get more clarity. Whoever wants more clarity, then please feel free to ask any questions. For the benefit of the people sitting here, we also have questions online. So I'll probably start directing some questions which we received online, and then we'll come back to you for individual questions. Feel free to have direct questions, because I know the presentation was a bit technical as well. But the idea of this technical presentation was that when you're discussing with government your projects, various projects in the water sector, it gives you ammunition to talk about, and question how the government is working, and give you some ideas to discuss at your level, individual levels with the member states or individual company level as well. So one of the questions is actually directed to Invest India, which has come online, and how Invest India is engaging with companies outside India in terms of project-specific engagements. Is there a model you are following, or it's case-to-case basis? People can reach out to you, or is there a way that you also have an outreach model where Invest India reaches out to the counterparts in Europe, that how they can engage?
So model in which we engage with foreign companies is fairly simple. So any company which is interested to explore opportunities in the Indian market or need more information about a specific project, they can write to us at our website, which is, we have a query portal on our website, and they can log on to that query portal and write an email directly to us. They may also log in into the India Investment Grid portal. I shared the online address of that portal, and there also we have a facility of raising queries. So within 72 hours, that is our SLA, within 72 hours we respond to every query which lands in our portal. In addition to that, as you mentioned, that is there any proactive outreach which we are doing to investors? So depending upon the requirements that we get from the ministry, we also do a lot of road shows, and we also work with a number of Indian embassies abroad in European countries, plus all the European missions here, to coordinate with them on any inquiries that they are receiving from investors, and then we help them channelize them to the respective state level authorities. So the approach is both, like we also proactively reach out to investors to fetch new technologies and business interests, plus we also respond to any leads which come to us on our portals and through other channels.
Thank you, Pranav. I'll come back on a project-specific question to Mr. Ajay Saxena. There is a question that looking at external investments, not just development banks, but also private sector investments in water sector projects, long-term investment. Is there any benchmark on rate of return for investors? Or it is, of course, like whether a ham model or any others? Talking about the investors, not the technology providers.
See, I have used, I think I have said in the presentation that the PPPs by law are monopoly by law. So whenever the monopoly is created by law, you cannot be allowed to have a windfall gain, like you can have 1,000% profit in your private sector if it is a completely private, because it's a perfect competition world. It is a monopolized world. So there is definitely a fixed rate of return within which limits the project's viability or the successful bidder's bid viability is also tested. So generally this is in the range of 15 to 16% of equity RR. In the water sector and in the challenging sector, there are studies done that if the risks are more, this percentage can go slightly on the higher side. But definitely the returns are there, and without testing the returns, this is how the viability gap fund works. So you have put in the this thing, there are on the revenue side, there is a fixed revenue or an estimated user base or something. Then you put the maximum that you can charge. You just to make the project financially viable, you cannot jump from 8 rupees to 24 rupees. So that if it is increased to 12, so 12 rupees gap is still existing. Then how the 12 rupees to be funded is from the viability gap fund. So how the viability is tested? It is tested on that benchmark of equity RR of 16 to 18%. In the risky sectors, it is slightly more.
So it depends on the risk of the project as well and how the project is structured.
Yes,
like that.
yes,
Thank
of
you.
course.
Paul, there's one more question online, actually two questions that they wanted to, if you could help in clarifying EBTC's role in under the IEWP partnership and also engagement with SME sector, how best we are engaging with SMEs in Europe for these projects.
Right, thank you, Varun. I think Judith actually clarified quite well what is EBTC's role in the whole India EU water partnership. It's really about bringing businesses into this whole topic of dealing with these challenges that India is facing in the water space in different sectors in those nine priority areas. In terms of SMEs, I think one big challenge for SMEs, European SMEs, is looking at a huge market like India, very diverse, very drastically different, as AJ Saxena was saying. So if you're an SME and you're part of water projects back home in Europe and you're looking at India, you really need to know that India is different in so many ways, whether it's financing of the projects, whether it's the regulatory environment of the projects, whether it's the partners you're going to work with in India. And if you're typically, if say you're a component manufacturer, you're an SME delivering to these large projects and you're actually working with large corporations back home, and maybe those large corporations are not yet in India or contemplating going to India, but you would actually feel more comfortable if you're part of you're going to India, you already know you have an anchor client, and you know you're one small part of a larger system of delivering to a sewage treatment plant. It's always comfortable to be in touch with somebody who knows about the environment here, what are the challenges at many levels, get information from government authorities, from experts like all the people you've heard speak today. So I think there's a lot more support that is required for SMEs in engaging with the Indian market and tapping into the Indian opportunities, because some of the projects you saw today are very, very large projects, and for an SME to fathom those projects is sometimes difficult. The scale in India, it doesn't matter whether you're talking water or power or waste, is so many times larger than typical projects in Europe. So from that perspective also, it's good to be handheld or have support in understanding those elements.
Thank you, Paul. We have more questions online, but I'll come back to the forum and group here. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask, or maybe we can do one-on-one as well. You can probably introduce, sir, and then, yeah.
Anil Sharma,
Yeah.
representing a German company manufacturing water treatment plants. Today morning I had a meeting at NITI Aayog because our plants can very effectively remove several impurities from water like arsenic, fluoride, uranium, silica, etc. And we discussed with them and we said that with our plant you can provide at least 10 to 12 liters of drinking water per person. And as you said, they don't have different lines. They were insisting that we provide 135 liters per person per day, which is, I mean, not feasible also.
Not
So
feasible.
how do we go about like such a situation like this?
See, sir, we have to understand that's where the piloting comes. The piloting comes, and not only that, your technology. I was told when I was preparing for this presentation, I was talking to the private sector players also if they want to partner with the European technologies to bring the technology in. And one of the major players in water sector had told me that he actually partnered with a Danish company and who wanted to do some treatment plant here. And he thought, because he lost the bid, he said that there is a gang or some specific water treatment technologies working in India, and apart from that nobody can work, which is understood. It is, in his opinion, it was the gang or it was this thing operating. In my own opinion, the people always believe in the existing proven things. So when you have gone to Niti Aayog and said that this thing happened, so there comes, this is where my suggestion was, there comes a small initiative on the cost side also from your side to show them this is working. Or you please tell them that I want to do only a pilot and would like to supplement. And yes, drinking water 135 is the norm, but it is norm for everything to be done. But there are norms for the lesser LPCD also, 50 LPCD, 60 LPCDs also for the slums, for the some other areas. There you can do, or at least in the villages also, there is a lesser norm for villages, for the rural areas. But the mindset which says that if some operator is there, he would supply everything, that's a small problem of awareness, and I think maybe a misunderstanding on his part, if I am fair to him. Nobody expects that if 135 liter per person is there and you are providing 10 to 15, then this should not be adopted at all. This can always supplement, this can always replace.
This is not the point. The point is that they were working out the cost. And working out the cost at 135 liters per person, then the capex also goes up. But whereas when you're working on 9 to 10 or 15 liters, the capex comes down drastically.
Yeah, he's saying
Now-
the scale is higher,
Yeah.
then it's easier.
And there's no technology available with them. Every technology has failed till now to remove arsenic from the water.
Yes.
And people are suffering over there. So we wanted to impress upon them that the lives of people is more important than the capex.
I think I said the same thing, that government has to understand. I think the government understands also. There is a cost of social cost, cost of governance, cost of everything. So cost is that everything cannot be put into a financial bracket. Everything cannot be adjusted into an Excel sheet. There is an economics, there is a social angle involved. The government has a responsibility. Even the dictatorship of type of government also has the responsibility towards its citizen. So a citizen is not able to pay doesn't mean that he should not be given the water. So if that thing comes, then if it can be substituted, this thinking is priced at, let's say, 50 rupees. So those 50 rupees can come back from the government. So I think
it depends on individual project structures, and your question is also, directing into specific project, how it is structured and what is the need and supply gap. So, but yeah, government realized that this part, and then that's the reason Mr. Vatisaksen also highlighted there is a VGF component in most of these projects, viability gap funding, and that's the reason, the whole idea of VGF. Wherever the project is not feasible in terms of financial gains or returns, it has a social side of it, which is covered from the VGF part. Yeah.
So one thing I can tell you, we can look at your proposal, and because I had just finished a talk before coming to this place a week or 2 weeks before with the WRA authority in Maharashtra for water resources, and he is very keen, the chairman is very keen to meet such people who can bring some cost at some particular level, because the cost of domestic cost of resource, this thing, and he understands there are limited sources. So if it is to be, if something can recycle it, he is willing to listen to them. Yeah. So I think if please go to some other places, please come to us also. who knows that it is understood in the manner that you want us to understand.
And that's one of the main idea of this workshop also, to equip you with more thought process and insights which you can go and debate. So we have a very good representation from member states, European member states as well. So, and I know under the IEWP partnership, we co-create and work together on these initiatives, but it's also important to know your individual experiences and engagements with the government for various projects. So probably starting from Spain, maybe that side, we like to highlight, Spain has been quite active with governments on various projects, whether it's Yamuna or other projects. Maybe we can highlight one or two challenges, which is benefit for others also, you know.
Well, thanks very much. To be honest, this has been led directly by the ambassador, and I think it was like 2 years ago, so I was here like 1 year ago. And I can't give you details of the project, but for sure, yes, Spain has been made a study through a university as well. But so far, I can't tell you much more about that. Sorry.
Birgit, you have any questions to be asked or anything you would like to raise?
Actually, at the moment, I don't have any concrete questions. I mean, it would be in general interesting what you asked before, and to the member states, you know, if there are certain experiences and to further understand the challenges that member states are facing when businesses want to get involved in the member states. So I don't know if any of the present representatives want to reflect on that.
Any further questions? Otherwise, yeah, go ahead, please.
Hello, my name is Simon Appleblad. I'm Environment Counselor with the Embassy of Denmark. So Denmark has actually a number of water tech companies operating and producing in India already successfully. So for example, Grundfos working on energy efficient pumps, Kamstrup, global market leader on smart water meters. So I think the companies are already present and they're managing to be successful in India. What is sometimes the next step, and it goes back to what you were speaking about, Paul, because they're component producers, the next step for them is sometimes getting up to the sort of solution-based approach and being able to work on projects as a whole. And that's maybe an area where the India-EU water partnership and the work that you're doing could be helpful also for some of our companies in facilitating access to those kinds of projects, where they can come in collaboration to do a whole solution.
I mean, thank you for this statement, and that's of course what the IEWP is here for. So for us, it is essential to understand certain cases in order to, together with EPTC, to react on cases. So whenever those issues come up, we are more than happy, you know, to take it up and sit together and find solutions.
Thank you, Birgit. I'll come back to some few online questions quickly, one or two maybe. And this question is for Dinesh maybe. So in case of a public-private partnership structure, how is the concessionaire protected in terms of tariff shifts? You know, if there is tariff shifting or there's issues, how is there any way government protects the concessionaire?
No, so that's
Any
what.
example?
Yeah, that's what is happening in HAM. That the annuity is already fixed. So whether government is able to recover, there is a tariff change, it is all government's risk. But so far as concessionaire is concerned, there is short of fixed annuity. That's how they are protected, and that's the reason HAM is being promoted and people are liking it and willing to bid for these projects.
Thank you. Mr. Saxena, a very generic question, but I'll direct this to you. Why is the industry in India reluctant to reuse treated wastewater? Is this because of the pricing, or it is because of the quality risk?
It is mainly the quality. If it is for the drinking purposes, I have seen, I myself will not drink, even if the video has shown to me. There is a stigma, or there is a larger, there are people who have shown us just by taking the water from the tap and drank. They drank in front of me and they asked me to drink, and okay, it's okay, no problems. So it is more on the mindset. And the finance side doesn't come that way. Finance side comes only for the developer because it is not financially viable. And I've told you that we are the same people who are paying for 15 rupees or 20 rupees a bottle. And while we are not able to pay the municipality for the same kind of a water, but we are paying heavily for the mineral water, and the same bottle we are buying in mall for 50 rupees also. So I think paying is not a problem. The problem is on the mindset and the kind of like what is being provided and whether I am fully aware of or not.
Yeah, thank you. I think we have mainly challenges across procurement, technology, and investment. These are the three areas and barriers. But we have addressed few questions here, and for the benefit of people who are actually joining us on the webinars, you guys can continue asking questions, and we'll be happy to respond back on email. And I'll request Judith to maybe run the feedback now.
May I please request the team to get to the next slide, because there we've pasted a link. I hope that the link would work here and that everyone who is also sitting here in Delhi can just maybe use their mobile phones, enter www.menti.com, short word MENTI.com, and also the participants at their devices, in their offices in Europe or at home, are requested to please enter this link. It's a very brief feedback because we really want to be sure that whatever we do here, the kind of sessions we hold and organize for your benefit, are apt, are of relevance, and you can actually, gain from it in some shape or form. And likewise, of course, the member states here, we're very curious also to see how you like this kind of interaction, and share some feedback on how we can maybe further improve, or what kind of topics we can still add, etc. So the enter code, which are written on the slide, basically divide the questions into two parts. So the first enter code is 74152. And if that has then successfully worked, you can enter the second code. If any of you has issues with the internet, with your device, or in general with this way of taking the feedback, we also have the old-fashioned way of have some paper copies of the same questions. So please let us know. But I think the silence is a good sign for now. I'll just give 5 minutes to everyone, and in case there's any issue, be it at the devices from the webcast participants or here, then please notify us.
We will provide a live feedback already.
Yeah.
Right after.
So I guess most of you are now on the second part already of the questions. We already see some live results coming up. I'm not sure whether we can actually link it to the webcast system in some shape, but I'm sure that we can share the results with everyone who was part of the session, even if it is afterwards. Yeah. Let's just take another 2 minutes, and then let's see how how you like the session. So I think that most of you are done now. At this point, I'd like to quickly hand over to my colleague Birgit to conclude the session. Thank you.
Will we have the Mentimeter results or? Okay.
Maybe, Krant, you can highlight the outcomes.
Yeah, just.
So we have like for the first question which says like I'm a representative of, so there are like 5 from the Indian sector and 14 from the European entities. And then which area of the India EU water partnership or segment of the Indian water sector is most relevant for you or the EU member states? So majority of people are picking the wastewater and wastewater treatment projects and the development of the project in India, and even there is this thing desalination and purification of all kind of contaminated waters. So total 19 different views are there. Regarding like whether IEWP is a facilitator, so 2 participants are saying that it helps us to get the market information. 12 participants reported that they are apprised of the project information and opportunities which are available in the Indian water sector. 2 participants chose like regarding the information on the potential partner or stakeholder, which are maybe the federal government or the regional state or some private sector. And yeah, so for the second one, it's still pending. Yeah.
Yeah, but thank you for providing this overview. And as you did passed on to me, I would like to thank everybody who participated here at the meeting in this room. And I also would like to thank all participants who were online, and actually we had more than 70 participants on the webcast.
Actually 90 was the peak.
Okay, 90 was
In
the
total.
peak, so that's very good, because this is also a certain challenge, of course, when we are addressing EU companies that are not based here. But it seems the webcast also helps to really reach out in a better way to the European Union. So I'm happy about that. I would like to thank our guests and experts that contributed. I think your presentations really added a lot of value to this event. I personally also learned a lot. So I really would like to thank you, and I hope that we can keep involving you on certain issues within the IEWP, because we consider your expertise and experience as extremely valuable, and I hope that this is received like that by the EU member states and businesses the same way. As said, the IWP is a rather young partnership, but we are getting more and more active with this, like really face-to-face and specific topic events. Or we already got far more active, and we really hope that we can reach out to you and that you find those activities useful. There are, as you could see in the schedule that I showed, many events coming up now, and we will, of course, in time distribute the information, and we hope to see you again. We will also provide the presentations, of course, and please do not hesitate to either contact me directly for the IWP, or of course EPTC, which is very closely linked to the business topic and will exchange on any questions and contacts anyway. So thank you very much again for participating, and as you can see in the program, there's also high tea, so we still have time for some bilateral exchange. Thank you very much. And thank you to EPTC, of course. I don't want to forget
everyone.
I think we can distribute that as well. Thank you very much.